Now I want to talk about the work plane. Let's start from where we left off. I'm going to tinker this design called My First Design by clicking on the Tinker button. Okay, now I have my cube. Now I'm going to zoom in, and to zoom in I'm going to use the wheel of the mouse and roll up on it. There's another way to do it. I'll get to that a little bit later. And if I want to zoom out, I can pull back on the wheel of the mouse. In mathematics, a plane is a flat surface with no thickness. This blue area with the checkered pattern is the work plane for Tinkercad. The work plane is about the size of the bed of a 3D printer. The squares on the work plane, let me zoom in here so you can see them. The squares on the work plane are 1 millimeter each. The squares are grouped in 10 millimeters to make a centimeter square. Since there are 10 millimeters in 1 centimeter. And now I'm going to zoom back out a little bit, and I'm going to show you how to change the work plane. Now this is a very powerful feature of Tinkercad, and listen very carefully and watch very carefully how I do this, because it's really going to help you a lot when you create your designs. If I look up here, it says work plane. If I click on this work plane and hold down on the left button of the mouse and drag it to the surface where I want to change the plane. Let's say I want to go to the top of this box. That would change the work plane to the top area of that box. Now it doesn't really look like much. It looks like you just turned the work plane orange, but in fact you raised the work plane. I'm going to hold down the control key here, and I'm going to press the left button of the mouse and drag up on the mouse, and I can move my plane around. I'll get more into how to do this later, but as you can see, the original work plane is down here, and then here's the new work plane on top. Now if I want to go back to the original work plane, I click on work plane up here. Now I let go of the button of the mouse, and then I go to an area that's not on an object, that's outside the work plane, outside the original work plane, and I press the button and it disappears. The orange work plane disappears, so I'm back to my original work plane. So let's say, for example, I wanted to put a roof on this box. Let's pretend it's a little house. I'm going to go over here to the basic shapes, and I'm going to scroll down, and I'm going to go to the roof. Now if I were just to drag this roof over right now, it would put it on the original work plane. So it put the roof on the ground. That's not where I want it. I'm going to get rid of this, I click on it with the left button of the mouse. I'm not holding the control key, I'm just pressing the left button of the mouse. And now I'm going to press the backspace key right here. It's that big key, like that. Now you can also use the delete key, which is over to the right. It's off the screen, but the backspace key will work just fine, and that gets rid of an object that's highlighted, that's selected. When you click on an object, it's called selecting it. When you click off of the object, it deselects it. Now I want to put the roof on top of this box, so I'm going to change the work plane to the top of this box. Now when I drag the roof over, it's going to put it on top where I want it. See? Now if I click on the work plane icon again and click off of the main screen, then it'll put me back to my original work plane. Now if I hold down the control key, hold down on the left button of the mouse, and then move the mouse, I can move around that work plane. I'll get more into that on the next lesson. Alright, so let me move this over like this so you can see it from an angle perspective. Now let's say I wanted to put let's say a cylinder up here. If I just drag the cylinder over by itself without changing the work plane, it just puts it on the ground. And that sort of looks like it could look like a silo next to the house, or a water tank. But I don't want it there, so I'm going to click on it, and then I'm going to press the backspace key, all right, to get rid of it. Now I'm going to change that work plane. I want it to this part of the roof here. So I'm going to get the work plane icon and drag that over. See, wherever I move it around, it can change it to whatever surface I want it on, and you can see how the work plane moves around. So let's say I wanted a cylinder there. Okay, now you see the work plane set itself at an angle. So now when I move the cylinder over, see, it's going to go right where I want it. And now I can click on the work plane and click outside of the object, and now I have my different objects touching each other on the different planes of the object. And I can zoom back out if I want to see it more clearly. So you can do a lot with that work plane, and you'll be using that a lot when you go to create your objects, because you're working with so many different surfaces. And I'll get more into it later on, and we'll use the work plane in different examples that we'll do in future lessons.